Chapter 62, Flooding begins. In the meantime, Zami, Nicole and Mike all watch Pod in another room via a window. The Titanrans have added their healing beds inside the ship, and they did it quickly before leaving their home, and Pod is on one of those healing beds. On the subject of healing, Mike states to both Zami and Nicole that he has been ill for a long time and continues to be, even coming back after some healing from the Titanrans. He does use his collaptor to keep track of his entire body function. This does make Zami sad and Nicole devastated, adding to the reason that Nicole should start having her inner strength. This is where Nicole and Mike have their own space. Mike understands that this news is a lot to take in. Nicole is staring at a window, looking out of space, amazed by the scenery. But at the same time, she is still trying to take in the news and thinking negatively that this Legion is now a Rouge team rather than an organization that is helping the flawed universe that Nicole is looking at. But if Mike is not going to be around, then she needs to step up and find her power as a human. She has her gear and her physique, and now she needs the mindset. Mike on the other hand understands that Nicole needs time alone, but Mike does go and see both Carpo and Vondur, talking about their next plan, wondering where either Mechajor or Xyanthor could be. Mike also shares how exciting it is to see new alien beings, and outside of Pod and Arvin, the Titanrans have started to become another favorite alien. After all, the Titanrans are strong and full of presence and their quirks are extremely fascinating, like the use of vegetation. Vondur, while finding it tedious at first, then starts to see how other races can complement another, and as Mike states, the Legion was originated by him. Vondur does see more that the team was made from an honest set of reasons on how to make security better rather than an egotistical idea coming from being greedy with power. Carpo also compliments Mike well, and while Mike does talk about how the Earth is all under Retron, Carpo would like to see the president and what the Earth is like. Even offers to make the vegetation better if he ever goes there, something which makes Mike and Vondur curious too. Another who has his own space is Zami, and Zami decides to go and see Pod. After all, they haven't seen each other for days. But Pod, due to the ongoing memories in his head, ends up waking him up, especially from a nightmare involving Mechajor beating him earlier. Now he has blank eyes, growling at Zami as Zami is grabbed, scaring him. Pod rips the plants away from him, off the bed, and pushes Zami against a wall. Thanks to Zami's shape-shifting suit, Zami manages to use his suit to prevent any damage towards himself. Pod, however, has reverted to his old self, and various memories are going through his head as he rampages. Nicole and Mike run to Pod, trying his arms to prevent any harm towards Zami while not hurting Pod. Zami considered zapping Pod, but pushing against the wall resulted in the engine being in danger of nearly blowing up. So both Nicole and Mike nicely advised Zami to use his abilities to fix the engine, which Zami understands and works on immediately, thinking this is another way to show off, but this is serious. With Pod acting hostile, Nicole and Mike look back on how they helped with hostile Diane earlier, to offer to heal and try and reason without showing acts of violence. Even some Titanrans start coming about to restrict and neutralize Pod, but Pod is not easy to handle. Even Carpo theorizes that Pod's healing is incomplete. Instead of Pod relaxing, the memories in his head jar him again. And so putting him back on the bed will stop Pod from continuing this behavior any longer. Zami starts using his lightning to keep the power level stable and his cube abilities to prevent any more breaking of the engine. The Titanrans, however, do struggle against Pod. But Pod eventually gets strapped back towards the bed and starts the healing process. Nicole and Mike try and talk to him as they assist the Titanrans, making Pod calm down, especially with the healing getting completed. What many didn't realize, however, is that part of the engine's problems is making the ship go too fast as well, and now it is about to crash towards the Earth, no thanks to the fight disrupting the engine. The piloting Titanrans try and stop it, and while Zami attempts to this fix, Diane has been keeping out of this for ages. He comes to get the ship before it goes towards Earth too hard, only a small crater is made, and Diane can see that everyone inside is fine, mainly injuries from Pod's havoc earlier. But when we thought that the trouble was over, some mysterious flooding started to happen, and the public was advised to either evacuate or go anywhere safe, like a new bunker system which allowed some homes to find a safe place underground. But only if there was enough time to enable the public to have more access to it. But where is all this flooding coming from? Even fire and ice start spawning from certain areas or become uncontrollable on many planets, but it is the massive amount of flooding water that takes the lead here. This is the doing of Mechajaw. He is using Viber to control water alongside ice and fire, but mainly water for the flooding. Mechajaw sees that his ball of Viber is solidifying on its own, able to control this ball, therefore, controlling all the flooding. As Retron wrecked their prior world, they returned to their prior home, which is mainly inferior because it's all ruins, and very little water and vegetation, but it was Creati's world, so this is where they stayed before taking a planet from Snarky's. This race who are experimental with the elements but tries and get it from other ways rather than the main elements themselves. This race was like a lionfish but with its own set of arms and legs, small overall, with fins all from the neck down to the lower back. But it is a world that the Morphils liked more due to the amount of water and building space, but they can worry about worlds later, they all need to jump back on their ships again. Speaking of Retron, like everyone else, the feeling of this battle is shared with everyone, fear, watching all around. They are trying to mind rubble and water, plus becoming unfamiliar with a town that used to be so recognizable at every corner. Retron thankfully has gone up to the high ground of the base earlier on, being unsure of the Titanrans and the Morphils. Not only does Retron think of the Titanrans as somewhat gross with the vegetation, but seeing the Morphils, especially Mechajaw, does make Retron dislike Pod even more. Seeing where he may have come from, Retron doesn't see a good or bad side. Just aliens that shouldn't be on Earth. Now the Morphils have yet another trip on their ships after Mechajaw provides a speech for them all, whether the Morphils are into the conflict or not. They are on their way to Earth as they all run to the parked ships, the primary problem in his eyes. Plus he can prove to himself that he is better than Xionthor. Plus, he is looking forward to seeing what Earth's wildlife is like without the humans in the way. And so, they all make their way. Mechajaw and Viber don't always get on, but Mechajaw is eager for the next task. Back to Earth. And everyone in the Titanran ship is starting to recover. Diane quickly goes to see Retron before the flooding gets catastrophic. Diane asks Retron why the defenses use Netro when he recommended not to use Netro in ways which were forbidden. Retron scoffs at what Diane states, talking about how Retron would be a better user of Netro than Diane could ever be, and even threatens Diane to stay away from the Earth because of these defenses. Regardless, the flooding starts taking effect, and so Diane makes his way after saying to Retron that the defenses will fail him. Netro is never meant to be weaponized after all, but at the same time, Diane is sad that Earth might not be a planet that Diane will see again after the flooding, even having a bad feeling for the Legion too. Diane shows irritation that his warnings were ignored. The defenses may have been okay now, but they will soon go out of whack or even falter if Mechajaw uses certain abilities that will make the turrets stop working. But Retron is not the kind who wants to listen to others, he will only listen to himself, and so far, he has not seen anything wrong with the defenses thus far. Diane is also more of a fan of someone using their abilities instead of forming abilities in ways that aren't moral. And so, the flooding increases and Zami sees this first before anyone else in the Titanran ship, seeing this through a window. So Zami tries to help the others get out as the water is breaching the ship. The Titanrans wake up and start climbing too, using controlled vegetation to help. The Legion does make it to the top. Zami uses his cube abilities to form ladders to help the Legion climb up. The ship starts to flood more at the bottom, and the ship nearly tilts over until the Titanrans use vegetation to keep it upright, even trying to keep the water out. The ship manages to stay where it is as everyone is on top of the ship, moving anytime soon once they have a plan. However, they see that not only has Pod gone considering he hasn't been seen within the ship, but that the Morphils are starting to arrive, and so Nicole devises the plan. Mainly to find Pod and get both themselves and the Titanrans to slow down the Morphils and try and reduce the havoc. For everyone to take down the Morphils, no killing, which is where the plants can become useful despite the limited numbers of Titanrans. Pod managed to get out of the ship quicker because he managed to protect himself more so as the ship was about to crash, enabling him to get out while the rest needed time to recover and get up. Some of Morphils are now out of their ships and have landed around the town, which is where most of the havoc is going on. It's close to the sea and is lower ground after all. But other areas of the Earth are starting to sink, and both servicemen and Retron's drones are to help the people, collecting those who are on the roof, guiding those to underneath bunkers or dragging people out of the flooding water. Not only does Mechajaw see that the base is also near the town, but he notifies the others via the communication spell that the base is what will attempt to fight back. So the base is the focus to fight against. Not to mention trying to find resident humans to reduce to. Once Zami generates some collaptors from his tech-generating abilities as a response to Nicole's orders, she provides those collaptors to all of the Titanrans. Carpo now leads the Titanrans with the plant manipulation, and Vondur is leading the charge to get their hands on the Morphils or any falling rubble. The Titanrans are slowing down the Morphils' goals, and Mechajaw, despite being annoyed, continues mainly on his own, even managing to fight a couple of Titanrans without a problem. Mechajaw fights these Titanrans in various ways, such as freezing a Titanran's arm at a point where the arm breaks, shape-shifting his arm into a clamp which he uses to grab and swing Titanrans away. He was also summoning ice-like shards that go through Titanrans, toasting Titanrans via fire or delivering a nasty bite as he plunges another Titanran into the water. Carpo and Vondur try and fight Mechajaw themselves, with Vondur trying to punch him down and Carpo using his vegetation to tangle up Mechajaw. Not only does Mechajaw freeze the vines and then break them, but Vondur is given a nasty slash from an icy blade which also has fire, hurting Vondur's side. Then pushed into the water, Carpo tries to save Vondur, allowing Mechajaw to escape. Along the way, despite the lack of stability, Mechajaw uses his Viber powers constantly to the point where he destroys anything in his path, killing multiple people and servicemen, making boats sink or freezing the servicemen's crafts to a point where they fall into the water, crashing into the ground. Even some people he finds then eat, always wondering what any meat tasted like, and he was not a fan. The Titanrans and Morphils fight each other in a variety of ways, such as the Titanrans throwing hard punches from different angles and directions which matches their type of martial arts. They also throw debris around to knock back certain Morphils or to prevent them from certain attacks like ship fire. The Titanrans can also throw one another in the air to tackle these ships, punching the ships upwards alongside biting-based attacks, and those who control the vegetation have been using it to save some residents, control some flooding and move the debris to make certain areas safer, but at the same time hitting Morphils away, pulling them aside or tangling them to make it easier for other Titanrans to attack certain Morphils. Morphils which are either as keen as Mechajaw as in being into beating up the Titanrans hard, or Mechajaw has Morphils which are more timid. They try to avoid the fight or try their best for survival. Something which the Titanrans tell each other about, mainly taking down the timid Morphils lightly while fighting hard against the fearsome Morphils. The Morphils, however, also have their ways of attacking the Titanrans, like using their superior martial art skills to counter the Titanrans in various ways regarding the Titanrans' incoming punches. The sonic punches from the Morphils are also used to hit Titanrans away and are also handy for punching debris away from the Morphils or back towards the Titanrans. The Morphils' ships mainly fire cannon-like projectiles which have been aimed at the people, adding to the death and building damage, not to mention the Titanrans too. These are also crafts which are quite quick, and being the size of a small bus makes it harder for these ships to aim. Even the Morphils have the advantage of swimming through the flooding. This enables them to drag Titanrans into the water or use the water as a speed boost or temporary hiding place for when it comes to surprise attacks, making this battle more in their favor compared to Planet Chronocope. So far, the Legion has struggled to find Pod, considering all the fighting, messes and flooding all around, and even Diane is zooming all over planets to save as many as possible, those that are without help. Those who get saved by Diane either have thoughts like, does this make for being absent despite everything being at a massive low point? Or could Diane and the Legion still save them from what is happening now and in the future? Diane does all sorts to help the planets, like moving residents aside or creating blockages to prevent flooding water around certain areas, making this the quickest time he had to go from planet to planet. He even helps wildlife too. And some races try their best to help others, but Diane has the speed and strength to benefit most of the race's survival. Also keeping tabs on Earth, seeing that Earth is under control for now and that every Legion member is alive for now. During the whole fight, Zami, Nicole and Mike all work together to fight Morphils via many ways, like Zami reflecting his lightning off Nicole's riot shield. Zami forms some blocks around Morphils for Mike to fire at, and even Zami attempts to make a new drone for Mike, one that is more powerful and armored. But even then one of the Morphils ends up wrecking it later in the fight despite doing well to defend the trio, and even both Nicole and Mike watch each other's backs as they fire their guns behind one another. Zami's blocks have also been useful to go from place to place, creating platforms or bridges so they can get around safer, and trying to find Pod despite the rubble and battling around. Even the Legion has to mind the Netro defenses too, as Retron orders the programming to go for the Legion too despite objections from the servicemen. This gets to a point where Zami has to either manipulate the defenses' insides until they don't work or zap them to stun them. But even then both the drones have been useful against the Morphil ships and firing at the foes below, as well as the turrets also firing at the same targets, except the drones can help move residents and servicemen around. Regardless, the Legion has Pod in its sights. And the Legion, despite fighting some Morphils, is still after Pod. Pod is seen mainly running or manipulating ice and water for speed boosts or platforms to reach Mechajor quicker. Every Morphil he encounters he also manages to fight easily, making Morphils slip, pushing them away via water gushes, and swinging Morphils down towards the ground. Plus, he even performed one cool move where he formed a whirlpool full of ice blocks around him when he was about to be surrounded by other Morphils, knocking or pushing multiple away. There are a couple of instances where Pod does save residents, something which Zami, Nicole and Mike have struggled with as they aren't as tolerant to the flooding environment compared to Pod, but even then both are more focused on getting Mechajor, who the Legion is trying to find as well. Pod can help as Pod has seen Mechajor go in and out of hiding spots. But Zami, Nicole and Mike still have to get to Mechajor first. There is more which slows down the trio due to once again being less fit for bombastic situations compared to Pod. Most of the servicemen are firing at the base, firing at the Morphils ahead of them, even some Morphils who try to circle the base too. The servicemen are around the towns flooding too. And even other ones try and help other areas of the Earth like the city, which could be at risk with the flooding too. Only the servicemen aircraft are available to use and even their boats to help gather the people, but the cars and tanks have been hindered by the flooding. The servicemen mainly stick as a group, trying to fend off some Morphils using their abilities, but they mainly use their numbers to move rubble around to help the people and place them on the boats or aircraft. He was getting the people far away from the Morphils, as everyone could tell that these Morphils were trying to hurt the people of the Earth. At least the servicemen aircraft and boats have their machine guns, which can also take down the Morphil ships as well as the Morphils towards the ground, until they are ordered to fire at other beings too. As all this flooding is a lot for everyone. While the residents are being saved by their heroes like the servicemen, others try and help themselves by moving rubble, hiding from the flooding or trying to find high or safe ground. This goes for every planet, and aside from Dian, no other planet has heroic figures like Earth does. But even then not everyone from Earth sees the Legion as heroes like they used to. The likes of the Legion also see that Pod is mainly focused on chasing after Mechajor, even though Pod tries to slow down Mechajor using his Viber-based powers. Mechajor sees and notices this, giving each other a great menacing stare, and so Mechajor tries to produce a variety of Viber projectiles towards Pod like fiery ice shards, which does get Pod out of the way for now. Swimming in the direction of the base, he sees where Mechajor is heading towards whilst in the water, and as Mechajor rushes to the base, he does so while avoiding the base's fire. Mechajor has gone right under the base at a point where no serviceman can reach him. Unable to bend downwards while aiming their guns and also unable to go through gushing water as Mechajor can. Some servicemen decide to go and find Mechajor, but as some servicemen will find out, someone else has got hold of Mechajor. Retron's defenses were doing well at first, taking down many Morphils, but Mechajor from an early point did use his Viber abilities to either wreck or stall both the drones or turrets, reducing many at a point where they don't add to the fight. This makes Retron mad and makes him rely on servicemen shooting from the high ground, as well as sniping for him to add to the fire. Later, due to others coming, the servicemen do see Mechajor down at the base, but then leave the scene once they see that Mechajor ends up with someone else. This varies in many ways, like shooting directly at the Morphils, or even shooting at rubble to enable residents to get moving, or to fire at rubble to make Morphils fall into the water. The Morphils do try and find cover considering how much fire is getting at them, Even explosives are being fired too, which can take out multiple Morphils. They are slightly weaker compared to Pod and Mechajaw. To try and fight the Morphils more efficiently and consistently. This is where Zami was borrowed to zap a Titanran vine so that the ever-growing vines, the ones not touching the water, can travel lightning to zap multiple Morphils at once. But it's not just the Morphils. From Retron's orders, they are now firing at the Titanrans and Legion too. This Nicole does let both Vondur, Carpo and the rest of the Titanrans via their collaptors explain that this is Retron's doing. Now Mike will go after Retron, even stating a nice few words to Nicole before he goes, that Nicole will be stronger without him. Mechajaw is reaching the base. Mainly an underground part of it, and that is where Pod manages to freeze Mechajaw on the spot, controlling the Viber within Mechajaw, preventing any movement, for now. Pod faces Mechajaw without fear, and Mechajaw is puzzled by Pod's abilities without the trident. Mechajaw and Pod fight each other in many ways as they both use Viber as well as their abilities. For instance, Mechajaw tries to bite Pod around the head. But Pod summons an icy pole which prevents Mechajaw from biting as Pod places the pole in his mouth. Mechajaw manages to break it thanks to the strength of his jaw, and when Mechajaw tries to swing his blunt weapon towards Pod, Pod then catches it and forms an icy blade to slice the weapon off Mechajaw. And Pod hopes to keep Mechajaw in there. Pod freezes the whirlpool but Mechajaw gushes out of it. This brawl then reaches its climax as both fight hand-to-hand combat while also throwing fire and icy tools at each other. While Mechajaw is more of a rapid animal. And Pod hopes to keep Mechajaw in there. Pod freezes the whirlpool but Mechajaw gushes out of it. This brawl then reaches its climax as both fight hand-to-hand combat while also throwing fire and icy tools at each other. While Mechajaw is more of a rapid animal. Pod is calmer and collected until he gets on top of Mechajaw again. So Mechajaw is trapped in ice up to his hips, then Pod kicks Mechajaw away, making Mechajaw go into other icy shards which Pod quickly summons. Then Pod starts to beat up Mechajaw. Mainly around the body to make Viber more unable, making Viber start to eat Mechajaw away, with most of Mechajaw's body stuck in ice. Both of them end up fighting again, giving each other devastating blows as well as using their abilities from Viber. Except that Pod has had more practice while Viber is getting unstable within Mechajaw's suit. The memories are still there but Pod is now using them to take them out on Mechajaw now that Mechajaw is at a disadvantage. Meanwhile, Mike is confronting Retron. Telling him to go for stun lasers and aim for the Morphils, telling him as a mate. Retron belittles Mike, telling him he cannot lead Retron. And so the servicemen carry on the order, well some do while others just go for the Morphils, knowing that Mike is more on the right side. Even some servicemen start to see more Morphils that are reluctant to fight, so while Retron and Mike remain absent later, some servicemen decide to use stun lasers to slow down the foes now there has been enough killing. So Mike and Retron end up fighting, slipping away from the building. Away from the servicemen as the flooding gets to the base, and the servicemen decide to leave them to it. Considering the many residents at stake and considering the targets they need to go for, even some join the other servicemen who are going around the floods to help others. Something which the Legion isn't doing as often as they should. As Mike and Retron fight, it is mainly hand-to-hand combat. Mike already disarmed Retron by taking away his sniper and throwing it in the water. But Retron takes Mike's pistol and stamps it against the concrete. Using his metallic feet to crush the pistol, leaving Mike with his little mace left as a fighting tool, trying to fight Retron to show that Mike is in the right. Right, that Retron shouldn't be reaching heights, and Retron has considered killing Mike as part of the Legion's downfall. Even Retron uses his crutch as a tool against Mike, resulting in an up-close fight of beating each other up while also fighting on buildings that are sliding into the water as well as chasing each other from one high ground to the next. Back at the Legion, they are still finding Pod. And considering some funny Viber activity going on near the base such as rising water and airborne fire. They think they know where Pod is, knowing that he will be trying to go for Mechajaw, but Mechajaw must survive and keep everything else in control. After going through some rubble and water, Zami and Nicole end up coming across Pod, who is starting to beat up Mechajaw ruthlessly, nearly becoming his former self. Until Nicole shouts at Pod, snapping Pod out of the phase of being vicious, making him realize he is becoming something he has always wanted to avoid being. The base shields since Orpheon's attacks have been up and down throughout. Ozona's storm somewhat jarred them at a point where it got messy but not destructive despite the danger. It remained up when the cube attack was happening, considering it was all solid projectiles rather than a load of air and lightning. But in this case, the shields have been shut down due to the flooding, and even the main dam burst open, adding to the damage to the land. With Mechajaw trying to freeze the whole area to get to it easily, also gives the base a disadvantage. Nicole clarifies to Pod that Mechajaw is needed alive to ask where Xyanthor would be hidden. Mechajaw then teases the lot, making Pod angry again. And so Zami and Nicole try and get Pod to calm down, but Pod knocks them both away. So Nicole aims to confront Mechajaw while tasking Zami to fight Pod to neutralize him, and Zami controls his abilities, which makes him get the upper hand considering how rough Pod is trying to be. Pod and Zami fight against one another in many ways, such as Zami charging his blunt arm weapons with lightning, which enables Zami to hit Pod harder as he is stunned. Zami then uses his shape-shifting suit to temporarily form a bigger suit on top of his main suit, allowing Zami to get a small upper hand, trying to stop Pod from moving. Pod, as he sees Zami possesses a power like Torrid, makes him angrier towards Zami as Zami continues to stop Pod from killing Mechajaw. This results in Pod freezing Zami's suit to make the suit more brittle and breaking parts of it, punching Zami often, and driving Zami into a wall. Zami and Pod end up fighting up close as they both form tools from their powers and whack each other with them, and Pod nearly gets the upper hand as he can hit harder and faster. This distracts Pod to a point where Zami zaps Pod by shooting into the sky, creating a lightning strike that hits Pod, massively stunning him as a result. Nicole attempts to be persuasive towards Mechajaw to get the location of Xyanthor, but Mechajaw attempts to fib by stating that he killed Xyanthor and that the Legion is nothing but a pathetic lot who cannot help multiple planets. Their evolution and choices have led them to all this carnage. Mechajaw does this because he knows that Xyanthor's universe would be better than the Legion's, preferring Xyanthor as the overseer even if he doesn't fully agree with Xyanthor. And so Zami and Pod continue to fight. Pod may be more experienced and combating abilities. But Zami is just as powerful yet more controlled at the moment, able to beat Pod as a result. As Mechajaw slowly dies, the whole carnage ends with the battle between Mike and Retron finish their brawl. Mike also loses his small modern mace. He almost gets the upper hand as he punches Retron a good few times in the face, driving Retron into the ground via a taking down move, also countering Retron's metallic leg kicks well. Retron sadly wins the fight as Retron grabs a sharp part of one of his metallic legs to jab Mike with, and then manages to push Mike off some high ground and into the water and rubble, taking away Mike's life as a result, and with no witnesses around. Retron somewhat feels bad but thought it was the right choice to prevent himself from getting into a small position again. And Mike would have kept the Legion going. Going back to the Legion, Pod and Zami are done with their fight, and Nicole can't get information from Mechajaw, information which would have been useful. This does annoy Pod, and this is made worse by the fact Nicole saw Mike's dead body. Diane checks for any vital signs but there are none of them, meaning he is around no more, making everyone upset. This makes Pod even more annoyed with the Legion, making them wonder why they went to him and not Mike, angry at them and threatening to harm them again. But this is where Diane comes in and uses his controlled strength to stop Pod from attacking. Diane is immensely stronger than Pod, and so Pod sees that he cannot continue to get rattled. Pod tried all sorts to get to either Zami or Nicole, such as trying to move Diane aside, hitting him with ice blocks or trying to trap Diane in ice, but Diane doesn't slow down. So he kept hold of Pod until he calmed down. Alongside the flooding around them, as they all sat, and Diane looked at the Legion, being disappointed for them, but flew away to help the planets continuously.